The Southern Ocean storm is with us until the weekend when it finally crosses New Zealand. Hello, I'm Philip Duncan. Thank you for joining us. We are all tracking the storm in the Southern Ocean, trying to make sense of it. And today we're actually going to give you a little bit more detail on precisely where the centre of this low is going, because it does mean many of us are not going to be impacted by it at all and are going to have some very lovely, warm, sunny weather coming up. Lovely if you want that weather, of course. Some of you do want rain. So let's try and make sense of what is going on. Here it is. Now, the other day, I wrote a big story on the Weather Watch site about the roaring 40s, explaining them. Well, right now, this low has basically put a giant roundabout into the middle of the roaring 40s. So this highway of wind is now hitting this, having to go all the way around it, and some of it is getting caught up right down towards Antarctica. So cold air coming up towards Tasmania, that cooler air comes over in towards parts of the west coast and coastal Southland, where it is a little bit cooler. And then the further north you go, the warmer it gets. And then once you get to about the lower North Island, you're outside of this low pressure belt, and you're back into the subtropical airflow. And that's the reason why it's so warm. And we've got plenty of warmer than average weather coming up. Warmer than average by day in pretty much every region right through until the start of next week. And I think it'll continue beyond that too. So this is how it looks for today. This is the current setup. Look at the air pressure, 951 hectopascals. That is very deep. There is a lot of wind all around this system, but the further north you go, the further you are away from the energy maker, both rain and wind. So the top of the country, much calmer, subtropical breezes still coming down. It is warm for the north. And then the further down you go, the windier it becomes. With the windiest weather now around the Southern Alps and Canterbury. But the winds are actually taking a little bit of a break, although they gradually will. I mean, today's going to be blustery, obviously, around the South Island, but the winds won't be as strong in Wellington as they were yesterday. And the low itself, well, it's actually starting to track away from us, even though it's still deepening a little bit over the next 24 hours. So let's take a look at the rainfall, and then we'll get into the tracking of where that storm goes. So for the next 3 days, check out these rainfall totals once again. We're talking 250, 300, maybe 400 millimeters on the very tops over the next 3 days. So these are some huge rainfall totals. The West Coast is getting in about a week what Auckland and Hamilton get in a whole year. So this is a lot of rain falling. The West Coast is a rainforest, and Fiordland in particular. It's very normal to get a lot of rain, but even this is getting quite exceptional for them. And there is spillover. So that's what you see in the pink colouring and the red. That's the spillover going into Southland, Western Southland, sort of from Lumsden westwards. It's going into parts of central Otago and also into the Canterbury High Country and foothills. So that's backing up the IBM climate forecast we just released about December that showed there could be rain spilling over into these eastern areas, but not in the North Island, because the North Island is stuck under high pressure. So the rainfall totals for the next few days ahead for the north, right at the lowest end of the scale, maybe only 10 millimeters at the most. So let's now take a look at the long range forecast. Here we are for Thursday. So the low weakens a little bit, 957 now, and it's drifting just a little further away from us. What that means is the winds ease back a little bit in most places around the country on Thursday. It's still windy through Cook Strait and still windy through the Southern Alps, but as far as concerning winds are concerned, not quite as bad. One last thing, that blue line indicates a little surge of cooler air coming in for the lower portion of the South Island. It's only brief, but it just comes through for a short time there. Otherwise, everybody else warmer than average. Let's go to the end of the week, and the winds warm up a little more on Friday. Once again, the whole country is warmer than average by day, but now the rain returns to the west coast after being a little patchy on Thursday with dry spells finally in the mix, but the heavy stuff comes back on Friday and gets heavier as you head in towards nighttime. The winds also surge back up. Now this is because the low down here is actually moving in towards us, so that's one step forwards, but at the same time the air pressure is filling in, so that's one step backwards as far as intensity. So we do get a surge of winds coming back in at the end of the week. The North Island ends on a warm, dry note, and it kicks off in the weekend on a warm, dry note. Just a couple of isolated showers around the North Island. Those temperatures in the east are going to be well above normal. Subtropical winds coming down, and if you don't have subtropical winds, you've got warm nor'westers coming through. Colder air is stuck down around this system, but look at the air pressure filling in even further, 979 there on Saturday, and by Sunday, 999. So it really is completely falling apart as it comes in and makes landfall somewhere around Southland on Sunday. But then it sends that squash zone of wind up into the North Island. So the North Island, which has been pretty much separate from this system other than a little burst of wind and rain on Tuesday, really the next few days ahead are settled, not so much on Sunday. You've got a burst of rain or showers and blustery winds coming through, but warmer than average. And our final map is for next week, and it's Monday, showing a high coming back in after all this weather, but a colder southwest change just briefly on the back heels of that low, which is just starting to deepen again as it gets pushed back down into the Southern Ocean. So quite a journey, quite a story to share you, but I hope that makes sense as to why some of you are getting windy weather, but it's warm, and why others are going, what storm? It is beautiful and sunny and quite pleasant at my place. So you can see why the North Island, for the most part, is separate from it up until this weekend, and that's when it all comes back. If you need more information, please just go to the news section of our website and app. It's got all the details and extra maps for you to check out. That's all from me. We'll see you again tomorrow.